Hello everybody. If you want to read all the story's content in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you. Short story 681, The Wrong Key. Intermediate. David Miller liked his new flat. It was small, but it was quiet. The neighbours were friendly. Best of all, it was safe. The building had a strong front door with a modern lock. David always locked it carefully. He felt peace behind his heavy blue door. One Tuesday, he came home from work late. He was tired. He put his key in the lock and turned it. But something was wrong. The key would not turn all the way. He tried again. Nothing. Strange, he thought. It worked this morning. He looked at the key. It was his key. He looked at the door number. It was his number, 48. He tried once more, pushing hard. The key turned suddenly, but with a rough, grinding sound. The door opened. Inside, everything was dark. He reached for the light switch. The room was exactly as he left it. His book on the sofa, a clean cup on the table. He shook his head and laughed quietly. "Silly man," he said to himself. "You need to sleep." The next day he forgot about the lock. But on Thursday evening it happened again. He put his key in the lock of his blue door. It didn't turn smoothly. It felt stiff. Then he noticed something else. A very small, thin scratch on the metal around the keyhole. It was new. A cold feeling started in his stomach. Someone tried to get in, he thought. Someone tries to use a different key. He called the police. A young police officer came, looked at the door, and wrote in a notebook. "Probably just kids playing," the officer said. "Or maybe the lock is getting old. You should get a new one." He gave David a card for a locksmith. David didn't feel better. That night he lay in bed, listening. The old building made its usual sounds, pipes knocking, floorboards settling. But then he heard a new sound, a soft click. It came from the front door. His heart beat fast. He got out of bed and walked quietly to the door. He put his eye to the peephole. The hallway was empty. He saw nothing. The next morning he called the locksmith. A man came and put in a strong new lock with shiny silver metal. "No one will get through this," the locksmith said. David paid him and felt safe again. For 3 days, everything was fine. The new key turned smoothly. The blue door felt like a fortress. On the 4th night, David was watching television. A news report came on. The reporter's face was serious. "Police are searching for a man," she said. "He is dangerous. He enters flats at night while people sleep. He is very quiet. He watches them." David's blood went cold. Vocabulary notes. Lock / lock. Verb. Meaning: a device used to fasten a door, lid, etc., with a mechanism that requires a key to open it. As a verb, it means to fasten something with a lock. Example: the building had a strong front door with a modern lock. David always locked it carefully. Similar words. Bolt, a metal bar that you slide across to lock a door. Deadlock, a type of very strong lock. Padlock, a lock you can carry and use on a chain or a gate. Stiff, meaning not moving or operating freely, difficult to bend or turn. Example: he put his key in the lock of his blue door. It didn't turn smoothly. It felt stiff. Similar words. Tight, hard to move. Rigid. The opposite is loose or smooth. Locksmith, meaning a person whose job is to make, repair and open locks and to make and supply keys. Example, he gave David a card for a locksmith. Explanation, this is a compound noun made from lock and smith. A smith is a person who works with metal, e.g., a blacksmith works with iron, a goldsmith works with gold. Fortress, meaning a building or place that has been strengthened against attack, a very strong and safe place. Example, the new key turned smoothly, the blue door felt like a fortress. Similar words, castle, stronghold, citadel. The author uses this word to show that David feels very safe and protected. Smoothly, smooth, adjective, meaning adverb, in a way that is without difficulties or problems, having a steady, regular flow. The adjective smooth describes a surface that is even and without lumps or rough areas. Example, the new key turned smoothly. It didn't turn smoothly. Similar words, easily, effortlessly, fluently. The opposite is roughly or with difficulty. Story written by DeepSeek AI. Image created by onemin.ai. To read all the story's content in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you. CC Music, drifting at 432 Hz, Unicorn Heads.
Welcome to the deep dive. So today our mission is really getting into those subtle warning signs. You know how we sometimes prioritize feeling comfortable over facing maybe potential threats?
Yeah, and we're using this really chilling case, David Miller in his apartment, 4B, to see how these tiny physical clues piled up, how a place he thought was safe turned into something scary.
Right, and the starting point is so important. David picked 4B because it felt secure. He really trusted that feeling.
Absolutely. He talks about this strong front door with a modern lock with heavy painted blue. That door, for him initially, it was like peace of mind personified.
But that peace, it doesn't last long, does it? The first sign something's off happens just that Tuesday. He goes to put his key in.
And it doesn't turn smoothly. It resists him.
Exactly. And when it finally does give way, he hears this rough grinding sound. It's interesting, isn't it, how quick we are to blame ourselves or just mechanics, fatigue, anything but malice.
Oh, it's classic cognitive defense, really. We instinctively reach for the simple explanation, the benign one, because the alternative, like someone trying to break in, that demands immediate, pretty stressful action.
So David, he's tired. He kind of laughs it off. Basically decides it's his fault or just the lock being old, not an outside threat.
Yeah, he actively chooses that narrative. But that only holds for, 2 days?
Yeah, because Thursday comes around and the evidence is suddenly right there. Physical. The key feels stiff again, he mentioned.
And then he spots it. This very small, thin scratch on the metal around the keyhole. And that detail, it just clicks, forces that cold thought. Someone tried to use a different key. And this is such a crucial moment. He does the right thing, calls the police, looking for backup for this fear he's feeling.
But the system kind of lets him down, doesn't it? The officer takes a look.
And just brushes it off. Probably just kids playing. Advises him to get a new lock from a locksmith. Treats it very casually.
Why is that, do you think? Why do external systems, like the police in this case, often default to the simple, non-criminal explanation? Is that common?
I think it often is, yeah. It's operationally simpler, right? Processing a faulty lock is much easier than opening a potential criminal investigation based on just one scratch.
So they suggest a locksmith, frame it as wear and tear, basically reinforcing the idea that maybe David was overreacting.
Exactly. But David's own senses were already telling him otherwise that very night.
He gets the auditory confirmation. Lying in bed, he hears it, a really distinct but soft click from the front door.
Gelling.
He gets up, checks the peephole, hallway's empty, nothing there. But the sound was real. It confirms his gut feeling, totally separate from what the police said.
So his reaction is immediate, practical. He gets a strong new lock installed. Shiny silver metal.
And for 3 days, that works. The door feels like a fortress again. The key turns smoothly. He probably felt he'd regained control.
He must have. That sense of security restored.
But then that fortress feeling just evaporates. Fourth night, he's watching the late news.
And there's a report about a police search for a dangerous man.
A man who, the report says, enters flats at night while people sleep. And here's the connection that must have just hit him like ice. The news specifies 2 details. The intruder is very quiet, like that soft click he heard. Precisely. And the second detail, he watches them. Now think back, connect that to the earlier signs. The click, almost silent. The scratch, suggesting someone trying to get in quietly, maybe planning. So the things he'd initially dismissed, partly because of the police advice, partly his own desire not to panic.
They weren't paranoid at all. They were, as you said, high-fidelity data points that his environment and his own mind tried to filter out.
So wrapping this up, what does this deep dive really tell you listening? I think it highlights this gap between systemic reassurance, like the police response, and actual genuine safety.
Yeah. Your real security often lies in noticing those small physical things, the stiffness in the lock, that tiny sound, the scratch, things we're so easily tempted to ignore because, well, it's easier.
It's interesting how the source material keeps using that word stiff for the key. A stiff lock represents resistance, difficulty.
Right.
But here's a final thought to leave you with. We started with a door that was stiff, hard to open. But what happens when the knowledge you gain, the horrible truth about someone quiet, watching, what happens when that knowledge leaves you feeling stiff with fear? It really makes you think about how easily we dismiss those tiny little anomalies, doesn't it? Especially when we desperately want to feel safe.